Cool. Hi, hello everyone, and welcome to this Toolkits live event. This event is called Poetry as Play, and I'm joined with the incredible Rae White, who you can see there wearing a colourful shirt. My name is Maddie Godfrey. I'm going to be your host for today. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm a writer, I'm a poet, and I'm the host of Toolkits Connect, specifically the poetry stream this year. I want to start by acknowledging that this event takes place on Whadjuk Noongar land, and I want to pay respect to elders past and present. This always was, and it always is, and it always will be Aboriginal land, and I'm very grateful to teach and to write and to host Toolkit on this land. I also wanted to start by introducing Toolkits. So those of you who were here yesterday or have been to previous Toolkits events will know that Toolkits is a 12-week program for writers aged 30 and under to develop their skills in a unique and an exciting online environment. Toolkits is run by Express Media, and Express has been around for over 30 years, developing, supporting, and promoting young writers through workshops. This is my cat as well. Through workshops, that develop skills, through opportunities for constructive feedback and publication, and through awards and programs that recognize excellence. Express also runs VoiceWorks magazine. Rae, were you ever published by VoiceWorks back in the day?
Sadly not. I started getting published, I think, age 30. So,
okay,
old boy.
I also was never published by VoiceWorks, but I was very gratefully rejected by VoiceWorks. VoiceWorks is the magazine run by Express Media for young people, by young people. I have a lot of fondness for it, and I thought I would mention it because I believe they are open for submissions, and if not, they will be open at some point soonish. So Express Media and this Toolkits program is generously supported by Australian Poetry and the Copyright Cultural Fund. This session that we're recording now will be available on YouTube as a resource, and it will be captioned over the coming days. If you'd like to ask any questions, you can do so on our new online event platform, the Express Media Zone, on Twitter using the hashtag EMToolkits. I'm not very good at Twitter, but I love the idea of that. Or via the live chat section on YouTube. I love questions. For those of you who don't know, I'm a Leo, and so that means I love attention, and attention and questions go hand in hand. So I love questions, and also Rae White is like the coolest person in the world. And for the next hour, you get to ask questions of the coolest person in the world. So what an opportunity! I'm going to read your bio after that informal bio, which I quite like. Cool. So Rae White is our guest today. On a personal note, I'm super excited as a big fan of their work ongoingly. I love Rae's poems. I first met Rae as they were standing behind a zine desk at NYWF many, many years ago. They had these baby zines, which we'll discuss a little bit later. So that's my personal introduction to Rae. But how other people might know Rae is that Rae White is a non-binary, transgender writer, educator, and zine maker. Their poetry collection, Milk Teeth, which was published by University of Queensland Press 2018, and it looks like this. It won the 2017 Arts Queensland Thomas Shapcott Poetry Prize, and it was shortlisted for the 2019 Victorian Premier's Literary Awards, and it was also commanded in the 2018 Anne Elder Award. So it won a lot of stuff. Rae's secondary poetry collection, this one, Exactly As I Am, is out now through University of Queensland Press. So it's out now. You can find it in your local bookstores or online or anywhere else. And it's really exciting. Rae is the editor of #MBLife, a journal for non-binary and gender diverse creatives. They are the events and marketing manager at Queensland Poetry. Rae's poetry has been published in the Australian Poetry Journal, in Cordite Poetry Review, in the Anjan Quarterly, in Overland, in Rabbit, and others, many others. Hi, Rae. How are you today?
Oh, it sounds so fancy.
You are fancy.
Wow, so you're fancy as well. And look, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to talk about about poetry as play. And yeah, when you said before, shout out to VoiceWorks, one of the journals that I subscribed to. I think I got like a 2-year subscription one time because I was just like pumped. One of the best journals, and also zines. We'll talk about zines later, but zines are the best and goodest time.
Yes.
But yeah, I will share my screen.
Cool. Just so everyone knows,
hopefully.
we're gonna start with kind of like a presentation by Rae, which will be about poetry as play and approaching poetry playfully, and all those kind of juicy topics. And then we'll move kind of into a more in conversation. And so if you've got any questions as you go, please ask them as we go. Don't be worried about interrupting. Just throw them in. Like I said, I'm a Leo, and I will. I'll make sure we get to them at some point. So ask questions as we go. Don't worry about interrupting. All right, Rae. Give us the
Nice.
goods.
All right. Let's see how we go. Sharing a screen. We did this before perfectly. Here we go.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
I'll do a dance. We did it.
Sharing
We did it
of this. I did it. I did the thing. Yeah, I wanted to talk today about poetry as play because I think we're often, taught to, like especially in maybe formal classroom settings, that poetry is something that's incredibly formal and, you have to follow a certain structure and, it can be quite straight and white. And, it's something that, fantastic. Love that. But also, what if we didn't do that and we had a bit of a play around with things? So firstly, though, I want to acknowledge that I'm on Yagara and Turrbal land, and that's where I live and work most of the time, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. This is things that you've already said about me. But yes, my name is Rae White. I use they, them pronouns. And I got to say, the first time I saw someone non-binary writing and on stage and stuff was Ivan Coyote back at Queensland Poetry Festival. That was, I can't remember what year that was, but I was like, oh, I can be non-binary and a poet. And so that kind of kickstarted a lot of stuff. Beautiful. Yay. Also, look at your cat. Hello, so Maddie's involved. Cat. Oh, look, I'm excited for your cat to write poetry. It's beautiful.
She's ghosted all the books. Yeah, she has.
Look, I look forward to cat poetry. Because I like to think of poetry as a sandbox or like a playground, maybe a cat scratching post. I don't know, but somewhere where you can like write and play how you want, when you want, and kind of like embracing trial and error, experimenting and having fun, and creating your own aims and goals. So not necessarily, going, right, today I'm going to write a sonnet, which is fine. You can write that. But also, what if you didn't and you played with poetry? For example, this is one that probably most people know about, but Blackout Poetry is a fave of mine. And Blackout Poetry involves taking a piece of written text from a book or newspaper or magazine and redacting or blacking out words in order to create your own poem. And I found recently there is an online version which is super cool, blackoutpoetry.glitch.me, which is an online blackout poetry generator, and there's sample texts. There's like ones from Heart of Darkness and Alice in Wonderland and some others, and you choose your sample text, or you can enter a custom text, and then you click on the words that you want to include in your poem, and when you finish you click black out, and you can get something like this, which I created in like a couple of seconds, and it looks amazing, and it even has a little border. And so it, there's obviously that, fun DIY time of blacking out your own, newspaper or whatever it is that you've got. But then there's also something like this, which is really fun as well, especially if you want to enter custom text. You could write a poem yourself, put that in, black that out. So that's a cool, fun tool that I enjoy using. And these are some Blackout poems that I did myself. The one on the left was shortlisted or something like that for the amazing Baby Teeth Journal's Blackout Poetry competition, which I would recommend entering. It's a good, fun time. And yeah, the one on the right is one that has been recreated in my latest collection. And we've kind of, I should actually have looked this up, but it kind of shows it as it would be without the black space. So
can I ask, Rae,
like this?
For people who are like wanting to submit Blackout poetry to places or publish it, how do you go with, do you reference the source text, by which I mean like the text that you've blacked out as well as what you've made? How do you do that?
Yeah, interesting. I usually do. Yeah, a lot of journals and stuff don't necessarily need permissions. There's usually just like a little note at the bottom where I'll say, here's the text. For publishing itself, like in, say, a collection, if you're looking to do something like that, it'll be dependent on the publisher. But usually for UQP, who have published my first two books, we do seek permission for these. So I think this was I can't remember what journal the Flourish Viola one was from, but we had to, ask them for permission. And often, like, it's a bit of money. Sometimes it's nothing at all. So it's usually just a tick and flick kind of thing. So it's would recommend like putting the source in simply so that people can see where it's from. For a zine though, do whatever you want. I feel like zines are a little bit scrappy and you don't necessarily need to do that. Another cool thing that I like playing with is a text manipulator called Glass Leaves, which was, I believe, produced by Gregory Kahn and Hira Lindsay Bird. And so it's something where you can enter your text and choose a manipulation, and you can choose multiple manipulations. There's various different things where you can extract verbs, extract nouns, mix things up, throw things backwards, take out punctuation. There's a ton of different things. And often it'll spark your imagination, maybe give you turns of phrase that you weren't expecting, and kind of kickstart a poem for you, or entirely make a new poem. So for example, like this is some text that I used from Wikipedia that was just about falcons, because I'm obsessed with watching the Collins Street Falcons on YouTube. Yeah. I had someone say to me the other day, "Oh, cool, what sport's that?" And I'm like, "No, it's just birds on a ledge."
It's a national sport. Yeah, you're making
it is a sport now. It's great.
Is it technically bird?
Yeah, that's true. It's a very nice sport. If bird watching is a sport, it's a A+ time. But like if you wanted to, make a poem out of this, you could pick and choose different words. Like falcon first, prey falcons, flying, fastest moving falcon, and you kind of get this. There's a lot of interesting repetition that you can use as well. Of which beaks, as a phrase I just saw there, beautiful. And so that's something that I've used quite a lot in order to spark ideas and bounce off bounce ideas from my brain to the page.
I just did a workshop with Freya Daly Sadgrove last weekend, or the weekend before. She was in Perth for the Poetry Festival, and we used that software. And I'm not a big tech person. My students who are watching this will know that, or the participants in Toolkits. I'm rubbish. But I will say that even I could use that. And what I did was I got like lyrics from my favorite band. Who Are My Life, like
Yes.
who I talk about too much. And then I got like one of my own poems like previously published. And then you do this thing where you take out all the nouns or something and it just like smushes them. And what I found really interesting was like those little sparks, but also tracing like the lineage of the work that's like lyrics that have inspired me with the words I've created, and then putting them together like felt like a strange little anthology of my brain. Yeah.
I love that so much. And like, I love the idea of mashing together two texts, like, especially when it'd be interesting to like smash together like a poem and then the poem that inspired that poem and the poem that inspired that poem. If there was like, you know, after such and such, you could just smush them all together.
Or a great poem and a terrible review of the same poem and then smush them together.
Oh, that would be very cool. Like, especially because, you know, just terrible reviews. Who needs
but like also
them?
the language of reviews is so heightened and so interesting compared to like the language of what it's about. I think it could be fun. Maybe.
I like it. Also, I was going to say, is there any questions that I need to?
No questions so far.
Amazing. So I've got my presentation just in my face.
That's all good. I've got you, and there's no questions as of yet. If anyone does have any questions as we go, feel free to
ask. Yeah. But yes, I'll it'll be cool to have a chat a bit later and talk about a bunch of this and like also you know, my books and stuff as well. But like, I'm excited to sort of, you know, show people the amazing weird little techie things that they can do, because I'm kind of obsessed with these little gadgets. And one that I discovered recently is called Language is a Virus, which is this whole website that it says on their website they exist to cure writer's block and inspire creativity. And they have what they describe as writing games, gizmos, generators, prompts, exercises, tips, experiments, and manifestos. And you can see down the side here some of the different things that they have. One of my favorites is the E. Cummings electronic poetry kit, which is kind of like the, you know, fridge magnet poetry, and there's just a bunch of words from E. Cummings poems. There's also a bunch of ones that were a little bit like you know, PG/M rated, so I didn't choose those. So definitely proceed with caution. Some things were a little bit sexy, but this one's fairly chilled out, and I really loved how everything's like right there for you. You could just create a poem right now, and you know, you could say that it was after E. Cummings. You know, have a nice little time playing around with words that he would have used. And another one you can do is create, this one is the visual poetry Mosaic, and it's basically just like concrete poetry or shape poems, whatever you want to call them. And you input your text, you choose the text size, and then you have a fun time drawing something. This is my terrible heart that I drew using I Carry Your Heart With Me by E. Cummings, because I thought that was appropriate. But it's a good time. And I think in terms of
I think Terrible Heart could be a great title for this, though.
Terrible Heart would be a great band name.
Our band.
Let's do this. I have no skills in bands.
This website is full of exercises as well. I've just wanted to note that. So languageisavirus.com.
Yes. Actually, if you want, we can put, I can gather all the links for these and we can pop them in the description or something of the video.
That'd be amazing.
Because there's so many resources, and like, you know, often people will be like, keep these resources close to their heart because they're like, oh no, you know, it's going to be something that only I need to know about. And like, I don't want to share it with anyone because, you know, I don't want them to steal my idea or whatever. But it's totally not that, because these are something that no matter what you input, your output is always going to be completely different to someone else's. They're absolutely beautiful and so much fun. And what was I going to say about language as a virus? I don't remember. If we think of it later. But yeah, they have a ton of amazing tools there. And oh yes, this is another favorite of mine. So I'm like just throwing different ideas at everyone. And as I said to Maddie, we'll put all the links in the description of the YouTube video. But this one's called Write with Transformer, and it's a pre-trained AI that completes your writing. And it's by Hugging Face, which is wild name. And so, for example, the lines here that aren't highlighted are the ones that I wrote. The ones that are highlighted in light blue are the ones that the AI wrote. And so often, like in this instance, it becomes quite repetitive and uses a lot of what you've already written. In other instances, it completely goes off the wall and will like write something quite odd that you weren't expecting. And you can go back and like sort of edit that and then keep going and seeing what it will write for you. This is one that I'm hoping to use. We were talking before about, was it rabbit poetry before that has the collaboration issue? Yeah, I'm thinking of collaborating with an AI in order to write my poem. So that's like a fun kind of way. And, you know, with, oh, that's what I was going to say about permissions for this kind of thing. I would usually just put, say, a note and say this was written using the tool, blah, blah, you know, in this case, Write with Transformer, and give a little credit. But I wouldn't necessarily say, you know, this is something that has copyright or anything. It's nothing like that. You'd need to get permission for. But yeah, that's a good one. Good old ekphrasis. And I'll show an example of this one as well that I have is in my latest book. And I love ekphrasis. I actually go to an ekphrastic writing group every month at Museum of Brisbane. It's so good. We write cool stuff about art. It's such a fun time.
No, I would go to. This is my favorite form. Like I would go to that in a heartbeat. Welcome to Brisbane.
It's so amazing. Like, and I think so for folks who might not know, is basically ekphrasis is poetry that's inspired by a work of art. Like it's a very loose description, and it can be anything from, say, a description, a story based on the artwork. It can involve a lot of metaphor. It can involve like commentary, and as a poet or as a writer, you can like sort of amplify and expand on the artwork's meaning. You know, so you might see, you know, a person in this, you know, in a painting and go, oh, that person's waiting for something. What are they waiting for? They're waiting for, you know, their latte, you know, and you kind of just go off on a bit of a tangent, and you can do that. And in terms of credit, I usually just say after, you know, whatever the work is, you know, oil on canvas, 1982, that kind of thing. So it's wonderful to see a piece of art, and, you know, often you won't be inspired by something, but then you'll see this one piece of art or even hear something. So for example, you know, it can be visual, it can be, you know, audio, it can be, you know, a lot of different forms of art. In my personal opinion, I'm sure hardcore ekphrastic fans are like, no, it's only, you know, pieces of art.
Yeah, I teach ekphrasis in a university context now, and I am trying to disrupt the idea that like high art is the only like ekphrastic source. So instead, I'm like, write about your favorite like anime, like write about like a music video or a pop star or like something you heard on the radio or a textual situation. But yeah, I love ekphrasis, but like I always say you're writing like an adjacent gaze for the artwork. By gaze, I mean like this gay, not like this gay, but you're writing like an adjacent gaze, like an adjacent perspective, when you're writing the story that's not told in the artwork itself. So I think when we think of like films, that becomes almost more possible, right?
Absolutely. And like, I think, yeah, I'm obsessed with writing poems about Animal Crossing, the video game, and it's like, yeah, that to me is ekphrasis. Like that, it doesn't, as you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be like, you know, high art that you see in the fancy gallery, which is also fine, because that's the example I'm going to show. But it's also, what if you know, wrote a poem that responds to, yeah, your favorite lyrics or something? Like, I love
That's
that.
all I do. Yeah.
That's your total vibe. I love it. But I don't know what I was going to say now. Oh yeah, I've written down some questions that like are ones kind of that I ask when I'm like viewing or listening or whatever to a piece of art. And you know, as we've said, art is very loose as a term. But yeah, I kind of look at, you know, color and texture and sound. I'll, you know, look at the tiny details, the weird details, the things that make me like maybe go, what is that? You know, and I try and sort of think of what the artwork is saying maybe, or what it's telling me. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like, you know, as Maddie says, it's kind of like an adjacent gaze. You don't have to look up what the artist was trying to achieve. I mean, that's also good. But you know, you might have a different perspective on this piece, you know, and it might evoke a different mood for you. You know, it could be quite dark, you know, the color palette, and that might actually, you know, bring you joy. And that might not be something that the artist was aiming for, but it's something that, you know, you get out of that art. So it's yeah, it's a good time. I love ekphrasis. It's also a weird word to say.
I can't say it.
You can't say ekphrasis.
I always say ekphrasis. I don't think that's right, but it's what I do.
I don't know.
Words are subjective. Ekphrasis. I can't see now. No, don't let me speak anymore. I'll just keep saying it. Please keep going.
I was going to say ekphrasis, mate, but that's not. No. It's like this is a very serious presentation.
Oh, yeah, welcome to Toolkits Connect. We don't know how to say the word.
Well, I feel like that's kind of like a lot of the time. I don't remember a lot of things about like, you know, the key points of poetry that I maybe learned in school. And I don't think that necessarily has ruined my life at all. You know, so learn the things, then I don't know, mess with them and or completely abandon them is my personal opinion.
It's a good motto.
Yeah. And also, hello, cat. What's your cat's name, by the way? So I stop calling him cat.
Sylvia.
Sylvia. Oh,
yeah,
beautiful.
Yes. Is this the same thing that you've responded to in your piece?
Yes. So this is James Gleason's Primavera, which and so that's sort of how I've credited it in a poem. You know, oil on canvas and the date, very fancy. Also realized that we're showing a naked body on YouTube, but that's fine. It's art. So we'll quickly navigate away from that. Who cares? Anyway, as you can see, like it looks quite, you know, there's this kind of like Adam and Eve, but plus creepy plants and kind of there's a lot going on there, and it feels almost monstrous. And so I responded in a way that was, for me, the two like protagonists in that painting were cis people, and they were looking in awe and disgust at these plants that, you know, were hand-like, and, you know, these basically trans people. Very strange way to interpret it, but I thought it was interesting, like the way that they looked like they were just trying to discover something and trying to pull something apart. And so I, basically responded in that way. And it sort of shows that you can, you know, you could look at that and see something beautiful, see two people making a garden and a life together. You could, you know, interpret it in any kind of way that you want. And if I was like, I can read out the poem, I feel like that would be good.
Would like to.
Yeah, it's one of those things I always feel kind of awkward. I'm like, yes, I will read out my own work. Ha ha ha.
I can read it if you want, but
Oh,
I can do it if you'd like.
I was like, you can if you want. Yeah.
But you know it better than
Sure.
me. So what do you want? Your choice.
All right,
Author's choice.
I'll do it. Let's go. All right.
Hooray.
So yes, pre-passive was what I called this one, and too washed lemon gold was trampling tawny toes, coaxing fingertips across salt lips of moon-licked mouths. Feathery pits, smooth, greased in awe, docile petals, like hair, pinch plucked, pincers chatter, a swollen omen. But you're busy, tongue muscle against the pomegranate of my eye. We've lived alongside each other so long. Only now you wish to see what I'm made of. But you should know my mollusk-tickled biceps are more bite than flex. So please, pumice my glistened cheeks with your palm, unfold lichen limbs to stretch, strain, to inspect, to gawp, to ignore the sharp wink of warning. Yeah. So yeah, nice. I kind of went with, they've only just discovered this strange trans species. You've lived alongside us for so long, and kind of went in with that vibe. But as I said, like, you could read so much into that gorgeous piece. And, it could be less threatening than what I've made it. It could be peaceful. It could be about beautiful discovery.
Can I ask a question about that poem?
Yes. Yeah.
You've got some semicolons in there, and a couple of times you've used like a double semicolon. I've never done that, and I'm not entirely sure what it means. Do you mind explaining?
Yeah. It was like a I'm trying to think of like how to describe it, but it was like, it's because it's at the end of like what I'm made of and sharp wink of warning. It was the lines that I kind of wanted to highlight and have there with sort of like a bit of a double punch. Whereas on Swollen Omen, as opposed to the other ones that, only have singular, and it was basically kind of for emphasis, and also to kind of almost like an ellipsis to show that something was sort of ongoing and I guess almost haunting, and there was that expectation, like at the end, you wouldn't normally end a poem like that, but it's to kind of be like, this is something that is ongoing, and the wink of warning is just the beginning. So that was the aim, but as with poems, like, you can read into it kind of whatever you want. Like I have people who've come up to me and be like, wow, your poems are so amazing and beautiful about like women's rights, and I'm like, they're not about what
oh yes.
They're not about that at all, but okay. Beautiful. But yeah, I'll finish off with some more examples real quick of poetic play that I've done, and then we can have a look and chat about some things. This is a poem called Home Watchful and Dust that's in my new collection, and it's a little highlight there of that section, and it uses, if you go to Lingo Jam, there's a Zalgo text generator, and this poem uses exactly that. It's basically creepy glitch text, and very, very Matrix kind of style, and it looks creepy, and it allows you to kind of really mess with form. Look, in this instance, I wanted something to look like the poem was kind of falling off the page. It was deteriorating, and so you can use it in various different ways dependent on what you're trying to achieve. And another Fun one. This one is a poem about chat rooms, and I use a little bit of ASCII art at the end. I really love me some basically using punctuation to create, as I've said, cute, sassy, or cool pictures. I did not do that fish. That fish is from the internet, but I wish I had made that fish. That'd be cool. But I did make the hand, and it's something that like I really like playing with form in that way, because it's not something that I read when I was younger. Like a lot of the poems that I read, they didn't have this kind of thing in it, and it's not necessarily mean that they were bad poems, just that I like doing weird things with poems. It's very fun. But yes, would recommend in terms of ASCII art, playing around with punctuation and kind of, even if you're just, adding 2 semicolons at the end of your, your poem or whatever, do some cool stuff. Oh, and this is a final one I used, just Google predictive search, and kept on typing in something until I got something really weird about transgender people. Like, for example, what are the transgenders? It's like, why would you type that as a sentence? And like, there's so much gold in the weird things that you get from like Google. So yeah, we've got
Did that end up in your book? That Who Are the Transgenders? Did that end up in your book?
I think it did. Yes. Hang on, let me double. Yeah. Because it's in a because it's called Who, What, Why, Where, and it's where it be.
Oh, yeah, I've got it actually. Yeah,
you've got it. Amazing. I'm flipping through my book, going, I don't know. Yeah,
page 69. But yeah, so it's the 2 columns, and you've kind of what I would call a simultaneous poem, where it's got 2 kind of columns that intersect, or follow each other. Yeah,
and then there's and so that's the other like column, as it were. Yeah, and in this instance, I think this was for Baby Teeth Journal, and I popped it in like in Canva. Also, Canva for visual poems is a great tool. Canva's like free InDesign / I don't know, making cool things. It's also good for making zines. Yeah, so that was pretty much my thing, that I wanted to show people, be like, look at all these cool things you can do with poems that aren't just aren't just writing poems. Oh, also thank you for putting in all the links. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so those links have been put in the YouTube comments for anyone who wants them, and I believe we'll also put them in the description after, so they will be available, because they're so good and so many good resources.
And I can totally put a link to the presentation as well if people want. Like, that's chill.
Amazing.
Happy to provide things so that everyone can write strange poems.
We're going to move into like a conversational mode at the moment. I've got 100 questions for Rae, but please ask your own questions as well. I will nerd out forever, but I would love for you to nerd out about Rae and poetry as play as well. So feel free to interrupt. Rae, okay, now on to you. We've done like poetry as play as concept, and I just first of all want to just have a moment with these 2 books. These are you've only got 2, right? These are the 2 books?
Yes.
Cool.
Hopefully a third that is not poetry we'll see. It's I'm working on a middle grade book, so we'll see. We'll see. It's got poetry in it because, of course, like can't not have poems. My whole thing is like, I feel like everything is a poem, honestly. Like,
it is. Yeah, I just read Below Deck by Dylan Hardcastle, and I just think there's poems in it. I just think like it's technically a novel, but I was audiobooking it, and I was like, this is a poem. And I was like, Saying that, this is like both poems and not poems, because like they're all like they're poetry collections, but the way they use experimentation and space and like intertextuality, and there's this real like awareness of how texts exist in the world, and you kind of like reshape them into poems. And for me, I think that's kind of like this argument with the world where you're kind of being like, actually a Google search is a poem, bro. Oh, like, you know, or actually like Rae has used like tables. There are some poems in the new collection that are going this way, which as
It
an
was mostly a
organization.
space issue, but like also then you're kind of like, they look cool.
So yeah, I'm challenged by it because my brain likes things to be certain ways, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to move the book. And I
Oh
think
no.
no, it's good. It's good to be challenged. I wanted to ask you this relationship between your poems and the way they like challenge poetry. Is that something you're like actively pursuing, or is that like an accidental just love of weird stuff?
I feel like a little of both. Like I think there's like part of me is like, oh, I want to make a really like kind of accessible collection that, you know, is very kind of very poetry, maybe like more traditional, but then I'm kind of like, no, I can achieve accessibility while also having like the weird fun times. And I just really enjoy messing about with things because I feel like for me personally, if I'm writing poems that are just, you know, left aligned or whatever forever, I'm just going to get bored. It's probably that I get bored easily. I'm always wanting to do something new. So, and also, you know, I think that, you know, as a trans person, I'm kind of like, well, let's go. Like, let's experiment with gender as well as form.
Yes. I do think the moving of the book almost feels like a trans act. Like if I'm being a little bit too metaphorical, like the fact that I'm reading and I have to, you know, flip as I'm going is a reconfiguration of what I expect, or like the limitations of a book, or like this binary idea of reading a book being up the right way. Like, you know, like the idea that a book is the right way is in itself indicative of like cis ideas of gender, right?
Exactly. And like, I was going to say, like, I've seen it. I've not seen it too much before, but I recently, like, literally just finished this today. It's called Recreation, and it's a UK poetry anthology. And it has, like, poems that are, yeah, like, they're landscape. And there's some weird stuff going on. Like, there's some good times in here. It's an extremely amazing collection. You know, we've got, like, some weird good times. I don't know how mirrors work. There's so much beautiful play in it. And I was like, okay, like, because I never want to be like, oh, it's just me. You know, everyone have a nice time with poetry. So it's beautiful to see something like that. I love it so much.
Yeah, I love it too. Yeah, I feel like I keep encountering it more and more, and every time it excites me, I'm like, oh, the poem is changing.
It's so good.
So in terms of getting these two books published, first of all, I feel like, would you consider this, the recent one, Exactly As I Am, a sequel to Milk Teeth? Like, how do they relate to each other? Like, what is their relationship, first of all?
I feel like, I mean, Milk Teeth was something that I wrote as, I guess, yeah, my first poetry collection. I think it's less, a lot of people say it's very trans. I feel like if you think Milk Teeth is very trans, you ain't seen nothing yet, because this is quite
then you better wait for this.
Queer. Yeah, so I feel like it extracted all of the queer stuff from Milk Teeth and took it into to Exactly As I Am. And I feel like Exactly As I Am is definitely like a collection that is more experimental and more trans, and it's sort of I think we were going to talk about this, but it also rather than having like the first collection definitely is has different sections, and like it's obviously like there's a certain way that I've divided the poems, but Exactly As I Am has like a certain narrative structure as well that I wanted to look at. So that's sort of a way that I compiled the poems to sort of look at, you know, they've all got they all start with EX, so exclude, exist, exclaim, and it goes from this kind of like being excluded, having, you know, a not great time, to gender euphoria, which was something that I really wanted to focus on.
Cool.
So there was a question I saw.
Yeah, so questions come through, which is good. It relates to kind of what we're talking about with your collections. Question from Twitter: how do you sustain that sense of play while working on a collection? And I'm really interested in how you did it for both of these, because I think in my experience, this like debut collection can be a very different challenge to your second. And I know there's probably people watching who are working on both or either. So how did you maintain your sense of play, first of all, while doing Milk Teeth? Let's start with that. Do you remember what you...
I was like, do I remember? I was writing it while I had an office job, which was interesting. And then I got made redundant. And so like, it was one of those things where it kickstarted a lot of my writing. And I think to sustain, at least for both collections, to sustain that sense of play, I made sure that I was always like reading poetry. I was always out doing things, like I was, or, you know, in my house doing things like engaging with other art forms, talking to other poets, watching some birds, like anything that would spark, you know, my interest and like maybe create a poem, so that I wasn't necessarily always just, you know, I don't know, sitting down reading poetry and trying to write poetry like I'd kind of I guess like it's a huge privilege that sometimes like poems come to me, which is delightful. But yeah, I feel like lots of rest and lots of not necessarily I guess like not being too harsh on myself when I couldn't write as well was another way to do it, because otherwise, you know, you're not going to play.
Yeah, I love that advice of, and I think we think a lot of like writing the book as sitting down to the desk and, you know, like being like, today I will write as many words, but like this idea of writing the book as putting yourself into the world and prioritizing acts of interest or pleasure or obsession. Kind of diving into your things you like sometimes.
Yeah, like I even wrote one about Pokemon Go. Like that's, you know, that's something that's, you know, I was like, hang on, how many poems have I written about Pokemon? But that's kind of, that's the sort of thing that, like I want to go out, be out doing things or not out. Like I understand that, you know, there's accessibility requirements for a lot of people and, you know, we're in a plague, but, you know, engaging with other forms of play in order to create my own in a collection. So that's definitely sort of how I sustain things. And I didn't just kind of sit down to write.
It's interesting that idea also, what you're saying about like it being in the home, as you know, as a chronically ill person who like doesn't leave often. I have this chair, and there's a section of my new book that was written because I sat in that chair every night on like most days for a long time. And like there's a whole series, and that's like no one's gonna know. Well, now you will. That's all because of that chair. But, you know, I finally got a chair that I could curl in and like be in a different place in my body and my brain. So, I
think that's really important. Yeah. Because it's like, even when sometimes like I'll be watching a film or something, but I'll be in my house or I'll be, you know, like sitting on my balcony. Like a lot of my lockdown was spent sitting on my balcony, looking at my plants. And I'm like, got to write about these guys. Like, you know, that's how the poems came about. So like a lot of it isn't, you know, and I say that, but like the novels that I'm hoping to get published, I did sit down and do NaNoWriMo, and to be quite frank with you, it's exhausting, but you know, I do it once in my do it once in your life, maybe, if you want to do NaNoWriMo. I don't know, it's quite exhausting.
I am secretly also working on a young people novel, but I'm not talking about it. So we can chat later when I'm feeling more confident in that concept. But we should take over genre together, is what I'm saying. So let's go. We have 10 minutes left of this kind of public YouTube chat. And just so you know, after that, we will be moving into a private session with the Toolkits participants. So those of you who are watching, don't leave. Afterwards, we will be with you talking about kind of the specifics of what you pals are working on. So we've got 10 minutes left, and anyone who's on YouTube or Twitter, you're still super welcome to ask questions. Otherwise, I'm just going to grill Rae. All right, Rae. We talked a little bit about collections. I want to talk about zines because I think it's so integral to your idea of play. Can you describe what a zine is, why you love zines, and how they're relevant to like everything you ever make?
All right, we've got 7 minutes. 8 minutes. Let's go. Zines, amazing. They're basically, I mean, they're whatever you want them to be, but generally they are photocopied bits of paper that you've kind of smushed together into a little booklet. And a lot of it involves, DIY kind of stuff like collage. You can, type a bunch of stuff and copy paste things. It's basically you making a little booklet and then printing it a bunch of times at your local printer. And then, you've got 10 copies to give to your friends, to sell at zine fairs, whatever you want to do. And I should have, I was going to say, I literally have my zines over there, but it's going to involve me getting up off my bed.
I just destroyed a part of my house. We're not going to talk about it, but I do have a whole box. I'll just show them as you talk, so we've got visual examples.
Oh, so we've got visual, yeah. Because some people do some amazing things with zines and kind of like go a little bit off the wall with things. And often they're, black and white. Often they're like color. Do whatever you want. And I think in terms of why I like zines is because, hey, it's me, it's your boy. Is that there's something that sort of has that, and I say this in the best possible way, is that they have a low barrier to entry. So you can make a zine like literally after this. Like if you're a Toolkits participant, please come to the session after this. But after that, straight after that, you can make a zine. You can make a zine tomorrow. And you can make it out of one piece of paper even and fold it in. There's stuff on the internet you can find of how to fold zines. And that's, I think, the most beautiful thing. And you also don't have to be an artist who draws. You don't have to be someone who writes poetry. I know people who just write like reviews, say, of, their favorite socks or something, and that's their zine. And I also like how it messes with copyright and that kind of thing. So I did like an IKEA Blackout Poetry zine that took pieces of an IKEA catalog and blacked stuff out as a zine. Hey, excellent. What we're talking about.
That
what
one's by Rory Green, who's also a Toolkits facilitator right now. Hi, Rory, if you're watching. Yeah.
Also, yes, hi, Rory, and thank you for any of the things that I've suggested today that you have previously told me about. I think
I will just say, like Rae just said, this one is one A4 piece of paper, and Rory has like folded and then cut it, and then they've folded it, and then like it becomes I'm sure the internet will tell you how to do that.
It does, yeah. Yep. And it's also, there is I made a zine that has like a bunch of different ways you can fold zines. And a bunch of people have done the same thing. Like it is a good time. And what was the other question? Oh, how it feeds into my work and play.
I think because play is so central to you, and zines are an epicenter of play, or like a place where play can often start. I was wondering, do you think like zines are part of your creative practice? Do they help you get to ideas?
Yeah, I think they definitely like, I feel like when I'm thinking of, like something that I want to do, my brain will be like, right, so is that going to be a book? Is that going to be a poem? Is that going to be a zine? But yeah, zines are definitely something that if I'm feeling like I'm not able to create one day, or I'm feeling, a little bit like lethargic in my writer brain, it allows me to have a bit of fun. And, sometimes I'll just draw something rather than write. And it's something you can do while watching TV. It's something that you can do like, I was going to say anywhere, anytime. You probably can't. There's some places you probably shouldn't, like, don't make a zine while driving a car, but like there's definitely like that beautiful sense of like experimentation and play. And I feel like you can't really do anything wrong with a zine. Like I also don't think there's like a wrong or right way to write poetry, but I think that with zines, there's even like, it's even heightened. Like you don't, you know, there's no real wrong or right way to do a zine. Like slap some stuff together to have a good time. And, you know, it can be any kind of like strange little idea that you've thought up. You know, like I can't remember, I feel really bad, I can't remember the artist, but they like reviewed a bunch of Aldi wines. Like that's their zines.
Nice.
And then there's like, yeah, there's just so many, like, just, it's like, do you have an idea? Do you want to blog it? Don't blog it. Put it in a zine. Like
Zine. Yeah, I just picked this one up, which says insect poetry on the front, but it's actually a picture of someone handwriting insect poetry. And then every page of it, it starts, a few years ago, I had consistently poor sleep. I decided to put a notepad next to my bed to see what I might write in my moments of being half awake. Here are a few of those notes. And then every page is just a photo of a note that this person has written. That's by someone called Izzy. I would have got it a lot of years ago. Thanks, Izzy. Their Instagram handle is @_IZZEH. I don't know if that's still relevant. But yeah, I like the idea that a zine, that like students always like, can I do this in a zine? I'm like, yeah.
yes.
You can do, if you're like, I just have a zine where I just want to put a fingerprint on every page and talk about how that fingerprint is reminding me of something, or like a thing I've touched. That's a zine.
Yeah. That's a zine.
zine.
Like, or I want to put my fingerprint on and then like create it into a monster picture. Go for gold. Like it's great. And yeah, there's so many like resources and zine fairs and communities and stuff. And more so now we're not, you know, having Lucky D's and stuff. Like it's a good time. And I think there's a lot of online resources as well, and online zine fairs. So you know, in terms of accessibility and stuff.
Just found some Alison Evans, some vintage Alison Evans.
Oh, look at that!
One of my sweet favorite people. My gender is a monster. This is Alison
I love
Evans.
That one.
I would just say I have a whole box here. That's how much I love zines. Do I make zines? No. Why? Because I'm not a very tactile person. I'm just not. Like that's just not, for me, is not like part of my play routine. However, like having zines in my life is a part of my play. Like even if you're not someone who wants to make a zine, I think like finding zines and enjoying, and there are online zines as well. Like you can
I
go
was
online.
Gonna say, yeah, just like you can write something in a Word document or like wherever you want, and then like shove it online, and that's a zine. Done.
Yes.
Like beautiful. And it doesn't, as you said, like if you're not tactile, you know, or there's like, you know, you have accessibility issues there, like, you know, just shove it in a document, pop it up on the web, sell it on Etsy. I don't know.
Etsy's good for zines. I do get stuff sometimes. Yeah. That kind of, we've reached the end on a very exciting moment about zines. Rae, do you have any final thoughts you want to say about like play or poetry, or how colorful your shirt is, any of it?
Oh, my shirt is very colorful, and your shirt can be colorful too. No, I think final thoughts. Honestly, I feel like if you want to write poetry, like this is a call to action. Please write poetry. Please make zines. If you think that you are not like good enough or whatever, you absolutely are. Please do the thing. It is beautiful and cathartic, and you can have a nice playtime. Yes. And that's it.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Rae. Just some final housekeeping notes. This has been one of the Toolkits Connect sessions. There are going to be more next week with the different streams. I'm quite excited to attend them. So like, please come attend with me. I'll be in the chat. If you are interested in anything Express Media does, or learning more about Toolkits, go to the Express Media website and you can contact Express directly, chuck them an email if you want to work out how you can get involved. Please support VoiceWorks. Like Rae said, they are just like genuinely a good publication. I have a VoiceWorks shelf over there. They're very good colorful spines as well, if you're looking to like impress people who come to your house with, you know, how well read and supportive of the arts you are. Like that's, you know, strategic. We're going to finish this session, but Thank you so much, Rae, and thank you to Express for having me here chatting to one of my faves. Yeah.
Oh, thank
Happy
you so
fun.
much.
Also, I never know how to